help me welcome Thomas to the stage.
How's everybody doing? This is special space. I know a morph is something we all go through at some point. So I'm excited to talk to you about my story, my life full of morphs. I know it's false advertising. 17 years ago, when I was 25, I was in a pool of my own tears in my parents' basement, wondering what in the world I'm gonna do with my life. You know, I didn't know who I was without football. I had no idea who I was. I had no answers, and my life needed a morph, but I didn't even know where to start. I had no idea. I was empty. You know, my story tonight begins as a love story between my 25-year-old self and this beautiful game of football. And I dated football from the age of 13 until I was 25. You know, when I first started playing, I found my identity in football because I was a big kid. And I always wanted to play sports where guys were really fast and agile. And they had a spot for me on the offensive line. And I had so much fun. And I saw myself in the game of football. You know, football was my love. It was my source of identity. I was Thomas, the football player. It was where my passion was. It was where I found my sense of purpose. You know, it was my small G God, and it was everything to me. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a football player because I really didn't know what was underneath. Football was my purpose, right? So I thought. You know, I had an opportunity after playing football at Bishop's University to go to Chicago. And I like to tell people, I had a cup of coffee in Chicago because it was quick, but I played in the Arena Football League. I came back to Canada and I had a workout with the BC Lions offensive line coach. And see, here's the story about my football career is that I was the shortest starting left tackle in Canadian university sports. Now look, the left tackle is normally the person who protects a right-handed quarterback's blind side. This is a person who keeps a right-handed quarterback alive. You know, what's interesting is that when I got to the pros, they looked at me right away and they said, "You're too small to play that position." So they put me at center, the guy who snaps the ball. And you know, I'd never done it in my life. I felt boxed in. I was doing something I'd never done before at the highest level possible for me. You know, football quickly said to me, "Bye, it's over." And this is where I found myself at a loss of identity because I had put all of my essence into the game of football. You know, I was devastated. Absolutely devastated. I was confused and I was broken. You know, it was like I'm sitting in my parents' basement and I look at the floor and all I see is different parts of me, pieces of me, and I didn't know how to put it together. I know we've all felt like that at some point in our life. But you know, one of the things that I'm thankful that I did in that moment and in those moments was I asked questions. And I was broken until I learned how to ask the right questions. And at that moment, I asked, "Thomas, who are you? Who are you? Right now, you have no joy. But when were you the happiest and not on a football field?" I'll tell you a little story about a camera. So when I was in my last year at Bishop's University, I decided to take a photography elective, black and white film photography elective. And I absolutely fell in love with photography. See, I had a Doberman. His name was Boss, and I just used to take pictures of him. I go to practice and I'd rush home and take pictures of him. Then I'd go to the library where the dark room was, and I would get lost in that dark room. My teammates were wondering, Thomas, you don't want to come back to the crib and play Halo anymore? Where in the world is Thomas? Where's he been? My roommate's like, he's in love with photography. They're like, what? That can't be who Thomas is. And you know, it's interesting. In that moment when I was on my parents' basement floor in a pool of my tears, I said, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna become a photographer. So I was broke. I had no idea how to start, but I said, Dad, can you take me to Future Shop, RIP, and buy me a camera? He's like, what for? I said, I'm gonna become a photographer. You know, I am so thankful that I had someone who was journeying with me. My parents were journeying with me. They wanted to see me find myself because they always saw someone beyond football when they looked at Thomas, but I didn't. So they invested in me. And it was the inspiration behind Godspeed, which is my growth strategy, branding and creative firm. You know, when it started out as a photography and video company. And then something very interesting happened, folks. I started asking questions. You know, I was shooting campaigns. I was shooting portraits. We'd come up with concepts for scripts and commercials, and I would ask the businesses we're working with, tell me who you really are. They'd say, we're a construction company. No, but tell me who you are, because your competitors also call themselves a construction company. You see, that process of going through that morph and that me falling apart taught me that these questions were the essence of how we navigate the depth in our soul. Thank you. You know what's so cool about that story? Is that they needed me to help them navigate those questions, to traverse through the layers of who they really are. And you know what, folks? What happened was they kept telling me, the discovery you're running us through is better than the discovery our agency ran us through to get us to this point. We now know what the essence and the soul of who we are is. And I realized I heard that enough times where it was time for me to make another morph. My photography and film company turned into a full-service growth strategy and branding firm. And what we do every day is we unearth and illuminate the souls of purpose-driven leaders, people, and brands. Why? Because it is the single most important thing in the universe to me and my team at Godspeed, because the essence of who we are lives there. If we're gonna create, we create from somewhere. Like anything, it has a foundation, and that's the foundation. That's where we get to the amazing ideas that turn into magic for people and brands and communities. The soul is my obsession. And 600 strategies, brands, and creative projects later, here we are, right here at ODC 19. You know, I'm a cat with many hats. You know, between my unwavering love for my creator, my family. You know, I am son to Winston and Keturah, two Caribbean immigrants to Canada. My father was the first Black employee at OC Transpo in 1966. You know, I'm married to this beautiful woman Tegan, who I met when I was 13. Yeah. So we've been friends for a very long time. And I have 4 lion cubs. They eat all my food, break my walls, all kind of stuff. Justice, Journey, Io, and Ari. They make my life so rich. You know, I've had 15 rewarding years leading Godspeed and traveling all over the place, working with incredible brands. You know, I've worked with the NAC, Causeway, Habitat for Humanity International, Nike, CAA. Right now, if you look at CAA's buses right now, it's wrapped in a big idea that we came up with. We've worked with OSEG on these amazing belonging and inclusivity campaigns that really illustrate the beauty and dynamism of their fans. In 2020, we opened Studio 2020. Some of you have been there. It's a 6,000 square foot studio in Centertown. And it's a place where people come to be their full selves, artistically, in a gathering space, all of those things. Life must be perfect, right? Right? Right. Oh boy. Not again. Let me tell you something, folks, and this is where it gets really, really real right now, really. It's 2 months ago I woke up and I couldn't get out of bed because I felt like this guy with a lot less muscles. I felt like the world was on my shoulders. You know, between being a dad and a husband and a leader in my business with an amazing team that I love so much, clients who are depending on us, payroll to make, rent to pay, I felt like I was falling apart. It was too much. You know, what I felt in that moment was distress, dissatisfaction, and distraction. I was starting to have to get to a point where I asked myself the questions that I asked myself 17 years ago in a pool of my tears in my parents' basement. Thomas, who the heck are you, bro? Who are you? Who are you? What are you here for? You know, for me, there is an existential space that we need to understand. And for the teachers in the room, I'm sorry, yes, I misspelled purpose. But I did it on purpose, so send me to the principal's office. You know, purpose isn't just, what am I here for? What am I here to do? I believe that purpose is an us thing. And what I mean by that is, if you have a deep purpose, I promise you, it will connect to someone or something else. And that is what's going to fuel you through tough times. But guess what? Most of us don't actually know what that is because we're not taught to sit in that place and excavate and pull it out. And I realized I needed a dose of my own medicine 2 months ago because I felt worthless. Where does your purpose live? I believe it lives in the most important place in the universe. Like I said, it lives in your soul. And your soul is the repository for all of the meaning, all of the energy, the drive, the joy that's necessary in order to achieve what you were designed to achieve. And ultimately speaking, I believe that every human being leaves a legacy. Every human being leaves a legacy. Maybe some more profound than others, depending on the choices we make. But I believe that legacy is one of the things that makes everything that we're doing right now worth it. Every relationship you have right now, worth it. You know, I want to share a little something with you. So, when I was thinking about my purpose and my soul and my legacy, I was asking myself, what am I here to connect with that's going to move the needle on something that matters? What is it? What gives me energy? What drives me in tough times? It's so important in a morph to identify these things because while we're going through change, a lot of times we lose sight on those things. And those are things that are going to energize us to the next position or place in life. So let me tell you quickly what I heard. I heard that I needed to be in a deeper place of alignment with the people I know I'm designed to do life with. And these are purpose-driven people. They're visionary people. They're people who are pushing the needle on something that matters. These are creative people. These are creatives. And I realized that 2 months ago, I wasn't spending enough time with the people that I was designed to spend time with. Another thing I heard was that I needed to embark on a journey where collaboration for me was boundless, because creativity and turning nothing into something is something that brings me so much joy. But I realized that 2 months ago, I was spending too much time on admin. I was thinking about money when I should be thinking about the things that I create that enables us to do the things we need to do every day at Godspeed. And I said, you know what? I want to do that at another level, and I need to take down the boundaries of the people who I work with. Why not go out into the world and meet new people that have new ideas that can stretch me and my creativity, my team and our creativity? Something that I love to do is hang out with people like you. I know that there's a story that was being trapped in my confusion. And ultimately speaking, I want to spend more time in front of people. In this morph, I realized that I was spending too much time running a business and not enough time connecting with other souls. So I need to spend more time speaking like this and getting better at it every day and facilitating by sharing the things that I'm learning every day in real time, learning from the people that I'm facilitating. This is so important for me, and these are aspects of my life that were not activated. And as a result of those realities, that's how I found myself motionless. Let me tell you what my morph has resulted in. It's something called Soul Society. I and my team sat down and said, what could it look like if we're aligned with purpose-driven, visionary, excited, creative leaders? What would it look like if we had a place to do more speaking and facilitating? What would it look like to collaborate in a boundless way and live in community? What if our agency became a community? That's what's important to us. So my morph right now, I'm in the middle of this morph, is building a community called Soul Society, where purpose-driven leaders and creatives can be in the same space, share ideas, learn how to go through these morphs and ask ourselves these important questions, to build brands with soul, not just brands that are selling widgets and pushing doodads, but brands that have the ability to create the change that the world needs to see, because that's how important brands are to me. Now, why the morph? That's what we're asking. Every time we're going through something like this, we say, why me? Why is this happening? This is frustrating. I'm tired. I'm confused. Why? You know why? Because inside of the morph, there's some treasures. Growth and evolution live inside of the morph. We don't grow unless we get to a place where we look at our lives from different angles. That's what the morph gives us. That's the gift of the morph. We experience the dynamism of life's journey. Imagine watching a film and every scene is the same. Watching 10 movies and all of the actors are the same. You see, the thing about the morph is that you start in one place and you end off in another. Sometimes you start here in a morph and you end up down here. And sometimes you start down here and you end up here. But that is what makes life sweet. It gives life salt. It's beautiful, even when it's tough. I'll tell you, for me, 2 months ago, I did not even see or notice that I was beginning to go from here to here. And I'll tell you something about being here, is that this is where you meet my good friend humility. In the middle of a morph, you will find this superpower called humility. Look at our world today. Everyone thinks that someone is worse. We think that we are better. We think that we are right. In the middle of a morph, your mind is open to ideas, a spectrum of colors, hues, language, tone, vibrance, and you find gold at that place. Being humbled is nothing to be upset about. Being humbled in the middle of a morph makes you powerful. In the middle of a morph, you'll also see how great you are, because everybody has a measure of greatness. But you know what? It's like love. I was talking to my friend the other day and I said, a lot of us mistaken romance for love. But when everything is okay, you don't need love. It's when things are down here. It's when things are falling apart where love shines its beautiful face. And in the morph, we get to see how beautiful we are. You know, folks, my time with you up here is done for this evening. If you're interested in following my morph, just scan this thing here, and you'll probably see a picture of me smiling. The photographer told me to smile. It was Mitz who took it. Where are you, Mitz? He told me to smile. And that was about the time I was in the middle of my inability to get up. But, it's so important that in this phase of my life, when we're in the middle of a morph, that we don't morph alone, folks. That's the key. Don't morph alone.